Hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to cover the series that took place between T1 and G2 many hours ago. This video is coming out only a couple hours before the Fnatic TL series even begins. That is what it is. Finally caught up and got out of work and did this. So, 5-game banger. G2 showed up in a big way. Unlike the other three teams that were 1 seeds from major regions that came here and struggled off the rip. Coming in rusty and things like that. G2 not only did that, but they also did something very important. They prepared level ones. We saw that twice in this series that I thought were very, very important, how those game states were in the early game. And that is something that I feel like I don't emphasize enough. I always emphasize, hey, playing very chaotic and stuff like that. But also level ones I feel like are very underutilized tool by teams. If you use proper scouting, which G2 did in game 1, you have an opportunity to make something happen. And it was effective. We saw it work out twice. Once for G2 for sure in game 1, but in game 5 it was a little more sus. But in my opinion, level ones are a good thing. So in this 5-game series, it certainly was back and forth. A lot of blown leads. A lot of poor Barons, very poor macro with the power play by both squads. In game 1, G2 got out to an early lead. And hell, if you look at my Discord, you think that G2 were going to dominate this series after only a few minutes. And that honestly happened throughout this series. It's really, never look at Discord during a series and try and, because I'm at work and just looking at the Discord and I'm thinking to myself, geez, I can't use this. This is useless when it comes to actually figuring out what's going on the Rift. So G2 get out to an early lead, but T1 responded. That happened throughout the series multiple times. Hell, even in game 5, and we'll get to that. So G2 blow the early lead that they build, and in the end, T1 find a way. So at 15-15, Broken Blade had a 1.4k gold lead, 40 CS lead on Yasuo into TF. Both teams did take a trip topside, a couple trips mid-side. T1, well, mid-side, mid-lane. And T1 did make 4 attempts where G2 made 3. G2 got all 6 grubs, but as that mid-game came around, that's when T1 were put online, and they were able to take the Rift Herald off of that and then start snowballing from there. They took 3 Drakes to 1, and they also utilized a power play very well with 2361 gold. But there's something to note here. G2 actually were able to get a Baron of themselves, and something's wrong here. One of these two, I think G2 had a Baron that was negative 3,100 gold. I think that's what that's supposed to mean. So, the gold was heavily negative. It was terrible. T1 actually were able to end the game off of that Baron. I usually give teams 15-25 base when they get the Baron. That's how much you get if everybody gets the Baron. 300 gold plus a 25 for hitting it and last hitting it. And, I mean, T1 actually won the fight against the Baron and then ended against Baron. G2 just not utilizing the Nasher properly and lost. And in game 1, I mean, we saw some interesting things here after that laning phase 2. 21 CS lead for T1, even though they're down in gold. Caps up CS, but down in gold. Game 2, G2 would respond. This was a little more one-sided. Caps really on fire in this one. Game 1 leaving a lot to be desired on the Tristana, but game 2 coming through in a big way. 1.1k gold lead, 37 CS lead. Broken Blade up 912 CS. Despite Owner having a 13 CS lead, couldn't really turn it into anything. This might have been the Rek'Sai game, if I recall. 1.3k gold lead for T1's bot duo, but they weren't able to do really much with that lead. G2 were able to take all 6 grubs. They took Rift Herald. Now, Drakes were split 2-2. T1 taking a couple probably in trade, if I recall properly. Now, G2 did get 1 Baron. Only 370 gold out of it. It was relatively useless, but they were able to find a way to win the game. A very poorly managed Baron once again by G2, which ends up resulting in an average Baron power play of 452 gold over 4 Barons. Just really bad management in that regard. Game 3, some interesting picks. We saw Camille and Poppy in the bot lane. I'm really excited to see how that Poppy pick may expand with G2 if they throw it in the jungle maybe. And now we have a triple flex of truly top jungle support, something that we've thought Poppy was really capable of all season long and even last year, but didn't see the support much at all. And Mickey played it very well in Game 3. So early game, T1 actually got out to a good lead in the top side. Both Owner and Zeus ahead quite a bit, combined 1.4k gold, 13 CS. But once again, Caps ahead a ton over Faker, 2.4k gold, 39 CS. That's 2 games in a row, over 1,000 gold lead. And then this one, I mean, 2.4k. I mean, that's a big diffy. And T1 didn't have an answer for Caps. Caps was on fire. I think he played Orianna in games 2 and 3. And the Orianna was really strong. Better Orianna performances I've seen in a minute, in my opinion. In that game, I mean, the Grubs were traded 3-3, but G2 were able to take 4 Drakes. And off of that 4th Drake fight, they took 2 Barons, totaling 4579 gold. Game 4, so T1 slowed it down, and G2 did as well. And frankly, I think this is where G2 kind of lost their mojo. So you're playing a very aggressive game. You're trying to make things happen. And then in Game 4, you took a step back. And in that step back, I feel like I've said this multiple times in this tournament, as a Western team, allowing an Eastern team and you to stay head-to-head through the laning phase causes a situation where you're probably behind in gold because of hands diff in and of itself, better macro, and better wave management. And that was the case. So although there's only like 3 total plays between the 2 teams in the first 15 minutes, T1 had a gold lead of at least 800 in all 4 areas of the rift. Not much really going on. And then, you know, skirmishes started happening and team fights around objectives and things like that. But in terms of actually like going to lanes and trying to affect the lane, it wasn't a big priority, and it resulted in, well, actually, sorry, Zeus was only up 100 gold. But Owner, 800, Faker, 1k. The bot duo of Guma Carrier had 2.2k. And at that point, it's like, oh, shoot, T1 are ahead now, and not a lot's really happened. Now, the game did tighten up a bit, but then T1 blew it out of the water. I mean, they getting leads without doing much is kind of indicative of what the difference is between these 2 teams when things are even and calm, when you don't create chaos. Nearly a 4,000 gold power play for T1 to win this one. 3 Drakes, 6 Grubs. Game 5. So this one, T1 had an early lead, then G2 responded. Back and forth, a very competitive Game 5. We saw Poppy in the support role again. I thought Mickey did great on it once more. Something to note, too, in Game 4, I thought Carrier's Bard was very good. So, the teams made plays all across the rift, 1 each, based on my opinion, and then 3 Grubs each side. G2 took a Rift Herald, but T1 had the Drake advantage. And that was important because it forced G2 to have to start respecting the fact that T1 could take Soul. And that was a strong it's a strong thing to wager against a team, right? You don't want to give away Soul. Soul's win rate's probably still over 80%. Last I looked a couple of years ago, it was that way, and I doubt it's really changed all that much. At the end of laning phase at 15 minutes, so actually something interesting too, all 5 games, the first turret was taken anywhere between 14:30 and 15:45, so very, very, I don't want to say straightforward laning phase, but didn't really change that much. We've seen some series throughout this tournament where there's a lane swap or this or that, and the laning phase ends in 10 minutes, in my opinion, because the turret gets taken. But that wasn't the case here. So, something massive. So, Hans, Sama, and Mickey had 2.5k gold combined at the end of laning phase in this one. So, G2 clearly playing to help Hans and Mickey, and T1 strong with the K-Salante and Faker on the Ari. And those 2 in team fights ended up being the difference makers. And a lot of people are trying to cite that Hans Sama's build, I guess, is what caused this team to lose. And in my opinion, it played a part. But at the same time, we have to look at mispositioning. And honestly, terrible decision making. that's also a factor. Overextending into team fights. Maybe they they started winning a team fight, got a couple kills, but kept chasing, and then in the end lost. We saw a fight where they took out Faker, but then kept engaging, and T1 ended up winning that fight 4v5, which ended up securing them the win pretty much in game 5. They had 2 power plays. T1, the first power play was relatively useless, and then the second one, T1 were able to get almost all the gold back from the first one. I mean, they won off of it, so do they really give a shit? No, but at the same time, a very poorly managed first power play that resulted in like negative 3,000 gold or something. So averaged actually negative 22 over 2 Barons. But Zeus on the K'Sante, super strong in the late game team fights. Faker on the Ari, a difference maker. Guma throughout this series did rain down damage. Hansama, not as much. Honestly, the damage numbers were very low relative to other series. Even the 5-game series yesterday with BLG PSG, we saw higher DPMs. We saw higher DPMs in the 3-game sets to start this week. So just something that I noticed. So some key stats here. Both teams pretty much the same amount of plays. T1 made 13, G2 12. Grubs to Heralds, Grubs and Heralds. Despite G2 getting 18 of the Grubs, so 60% of the Grubs, they only end up with 40% of the Heralds. T1 getting 3 of them. Could probably want to look at game 1 as an example of that. That T1 took the Herald, even though they didn't get any of the Grubs. Drake's 11-9 in T1's favor, so once again close. This series was nothing but close. Guma, 21-11-37, 29% of damage leading the way. Karya, 11-12-48 at the support role. So combined, 32, 23, and 85 as the bot duo statistically leads the way. Of course, like I said, Faker and Zeus in Game 5 were very strong. Owner also had points in this series where he's good. Oh, speaking of Owner, that means I need to say something about Yike. I can't believe I forgot. Belveth is an absolute trash pick. I don't think there's a pick that I have less faith in when I see it on the Rift than Belveth. Honest to God, when I see that pick, I think to myself, this team wants to lose. They want to lose. Like, if the teams are close, of course, people are going to say, yeah, but look at Yike's win rate. Yeah, if he's beating, like, I don't know, Astralis last year on Belveth, I could care less. But when I see it in the big events, I just think to myself, this champ stinks. Why are you playing this champion? I really don't like... hell, I don't even really like it when Kanavi plays it. And I think Kanavi is one of the best junglers in the world. And I'm like, hey, you've got all these other champions who play. Just don't play Belveth. And they played Belveth, and I know he was feeling himself. He had Rek'Sai earlier on, so he wanted to get another Void buff. No, that's just not... that's not applicable. Not good. So... that's a thing. Hansama, 16, 16, 26, 24% damage and loss. Like I said, I'm not blaming Hansama for this completely. Caps had some really terrible games and some really strong games, very inconsistent. Yike, very strong games. And then in Game 5, whoever's responsible for the Belveth is responsible for that decision, whether it's Yike or the coaching staff. Mickey, I thought, played a pretty good series. He might have been the best player of the team in this one. I know people are going to say, yeah, but he had int moments. Yeah, maybe, I'll take that back. Broken Blade played better than Mickey did. But I think Mickey, over the entirety, I thought when your support kind of dives in on a Leona or a Rel, that's kind of what the champion does. They go in, and if not everyone's on the same page, then they're going to die, and you want them on the same page. But, what's more egregious, doing that or dying when you're on a Tristan and you can W out? Or overextending in a side lane and getting caught. Like, picking and choosing who to blame is always kind of fishy to me unless it's blatant, especially over a 5-game series. You want to say coming down to it, Hansama built poorly in Game 5, so that's the reason we lost. And it's like, no, in my opinion, probably lost in Game 1 when you had the game by the balls and you threw it away. That's probably when you lost, personally. In my opinion, you got to look back at the whole series and say to yourself, how did we lose this series? Well, you had some, terrible power plays. You had some terrible decisions. And you also had some good things. Those level 1s, good. The Poppy being Flex's support, a nice pick. But it's, it is what it is. T1 ended up taking it 3-2. Preview for tomorrow: Team Liquid Fnatic. So by the time you're watching this in a couple hours, that series will start, or you're watching it after the fact, depending on your time zone. These teams played each other at MSI 2018. Fnatic would win 2 of those 3 games. Impact is the only player that remains. He's went to a couple teams since, but he was on Team Liquid then. 6-10-9 in that series. Nobody's played against each other between these 2 squads. Top Esports Gen G, we have a couple matchups to go over. 369 and Keen played against each other last year, JDG and KT respectively. JDG would win that one 3-1. 369 went 10, 11, 16 and had a solo kill onto Keen. Keen would go 7, 12, and 14 and have a laning phase advantage of 200 gold, 3 CS, and 75 XP on average. So a close duel. In the jungle, you have Tian and Canyon. They've played against each other twice at Worlds 2021 in group stage, and Canyon would win both on Damwon Kia, or no, Damwon Gaming at the time, and Tian was on FPX. So Canyon went 3-2 and 20 on average, had a 170 gold lead. Tian 2-5-4 on average, a 14 CS lead and 35 XP lead. So that series, of course, is an exceptional series. I expect it to go 5 games. You've got a matchup in top lane that I think could go either way. You have a mid-jungle duo favoring Gen G and then a bot duo favoring Top Esports. I think it's going to be a really exciting one. Where the first series, Team Liquid and Fnatic, I am not nearly as interested in from a, excitement standpoint. NA versus EU. I mean, going into this, I think my opinion of Team Liquid has been pretty clear going into this one. Going into this MSI. So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, like it, subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter, and hope to see you again tomorrow.